it actually is connecting. So today I wanted to just talk to you guys about two things. First thing I wanted to talk to you about is stimming. So we're getting a lot of questions in regards to stimming and what's the purpose of it and how does it make us feel as parents when we see our child engage in this. So back when my daughter was little, one of the things that she used to do is she used to take, let's assume this was a toy, she would take toys and she would just twist them in her hands. And that was a form of stimming. She would also drool a lot. That was, we weren't sure if that was a stim or not, but it could have been a form of stimming. Then another thing she would do is she would go like this with her hands. And that's also considered a form of stimming. And at first, I never really thought anything of it. When I watched her do it, I would say, why is she doing that? It looks odd to me, but why is she doing that? It never came across as I guess I never had the thought that I was maybe scared of it or spooked by it or maybe feel a little funny about her doing that in public. I always just looked at it and I said, just why is she doing that? And then I started to see patterns like, she'd watch her favorite show. She'd get super excited. If she was about to go down a slide, she'd get super excited. So for me, it was easy for me to connect that, this is some sort of energy release for her. And then it's just really interesting because we have some moms and dads that have come to me and said, I want the stimming to stop. And then I asked them, well, why? What do you think it is? And they said, well, it just doesn't look right and it's not functional. And I just don't understand why they do it. And I remember thinking in my head, I was like, it's interesting. I want to kind of bring awareness around our thoughts when it comes to our kids because we're the catalyst of what their future is going to look like. And if we have certain thoughts about things they do, that could either make or break us onto that path of getting them, to their best versions of themselves. So I say to them, when parents say this to me and I say, well, what do you think she's doing it for or he's doing it for? And she'll just be like, well, or he'll be like, I don't know, it just looks like it's just pointless. There's no reason behind it. And I'm like, well, what do you think about it? Well, I don't like looking at it. I remember somebody had said to me that her daughter would make like random noises really loud and the neighbors could hear it. And she's, I don't want the neighbors thinking something is, that we're hurting her or anything like that. And I said, okay, well, what if we could look at this from a different angle, like a different lens and say, and I'll give you a solution to help with stimming in a second, but I just want to look at the thoughts around stimming first. What if we could just look at this as I did with Juliana organically, and I'm totally shocked I did this organically, that movement or that vocal stim is some form of energy release. And that our kids on the spectrum, most of them tend to be super high energy. And these motions or vocal stims are their way of releasing that excess energy. Does that feel different to you than looking at them and saying like, oh my gosh, I'm just embarrassed by them making these noises or doing these weird gestures? And I really want you to just stop and just take a look at that. If that's how you've been feeling, and now I'm saying, could you think of it as like an energy release? Does that feel better to you? Because I know that I never really felt like weird about it, but I remember thinking when I realized like, oh, she's doing it because she's just like excited or releasing that excess energy. I felt love wrapped around that thought. So I want us to always be super cognizant of the thoughts that we have around the things that our children on the spectrum do, because that'll sometimes send us into a sputter. And then next thing you know, it's derailing our thoughts and the actions that we may take to get our kids the progress that we want to see for them. So that was the first thing I wanted to mention. Now, what I also see stimming, and Juliana still stims to this day, I don't really push on it because I think that we have other fish to fry. Like we have social skills that we want to work on. We have, eating that we need to improve on. So what I always say is I kind of pick my battles. But if it's stimming seems to be taking over life, then I want to look at their schedule in general. Juliana has a very structured schedule. So we want to make sure that we are filling their day as much as we can. A downtime is important too, but I only give her a really kind of set amount of that because I feel like with our kids, the idle mind is a devil's workshop. So the more that they're left to their own devices, the more the stimming is going to be prevalent because it's just releasing this excess energy. If I can get her on a trampoline, if I can get her to a park, if I can get her doing, ABA sessions as many hours as possible, I notice that the stimming decreases. I'm never of the mind that I ever want to get rid of it. If it's the only time I'd ever want to look at stimming and get rid of it is obviously if it was something they were doing that was harmful to themselves, or if it was distracting their ability to grow educationally. But most times I kind of just look at her stimming as like an energy release. And she'll come home from school one day and she's like, I'm going to go out and play. And I'm like, all right, well, actually, you're just going to walk around the yard and, stim away. But by all means, go ahead and do that. And I don't see it as anything other than something that she needs. She enjoys it. She's winding down for her day. And looking at it that way, I felt was just so much more helpful for me than to look at it and just be like, oh my gosh, this looks, there's no function for this. And there's there's nothing good to come of this. And I don't think of it that way. I think of it just always just like, oh, she's letting off some steam. So, that's my little tidbit today on stimming. What I do want to say also is we want to make sure that if the stimming is happening a lot, I want you to look at their calendar and say, am I filling it enough? Am I putting enough structured activities in there to help reduce the stimming? So I can't see your chat comments. I'm testing out a new software, but I hope this was helpful. I don't know if you all know it, but we are having a free workshop next Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what we're going to be doing is we are going to be answering your questions live on this workshop. I will put the link in the comments if it's not already there. You need to sign up for it. It's free. And we're going to go over anything problem behavior, anything aggression. So it could be self-harm. It could be hurting others, hurting their siblings. It could be just tantruming. Tantruming was a huge thing for Juliana. We went through a little bit of a hitting phase, but for the most part, we're going to go over all of that. We're going to attack it like the bomb squad autism moms and dads that we need to be, because the best first hack that I do with it is prevention. And we're going to talk about how to prevent those bombs from going off. And then we can start talking about reducing the behaviors. So I hope you can join me for that. I hope this was helpful. If anyone has any comments or questions, just post them below and I will get back to you shortly. But the link to come to that free workshop is below. And I think that's